You're being set apart. This message is for every woman who's been misunderstood, underestimated, and overlooked. Because the very things you think disqualify you are the very signs that you're chosen. Don't scroll away, because by the time this is over, you're going to stop doubting who you are and start owning who you were born to be. There's a moment in every chosen woman's life where everything around her starts to feel unfamiliar. Suddenly, the people she used to laugh with feel distant. The conversations that once felt comforting now seem empty. The rooms she once lit up now feel cold. It's not because she's changed into someone worse. It's because she's growing into someone greater. Growth is uncomfortable, but what no one ever tells you is that being chosen means being set apart. Not because you're better than anyone else, but because what's inside of you requires space, silence, and solitude to evolve. You are not being punished. You are being prepared. When a chosen woman is being elevated, she doesn't get there by standing in crowds. She gets there by learning how to stand alone. And that aloneness isn't weakness, it's training. It's divine development. When no one is texting you back, when the invites stop coming, when people you thought would be with you forever suddenly disappear, that's not abandonment. That's alignment. The problem is we've been conditioned to think that isolation means something is wrong with us, that if people walk away, it must be because we messed up, that if we're sitting alone, we must be unloved. But you have to shift that mindset. The truth is, when you are chosen, the removal of distractions is intentional. The silence is sacred. The loneliness is not empty space, it's the workshop where your strength is being built. Diamonds aren't formed in daylight. Gold isn't purified in a public ceremony. Greatness never announces its process. It happens in the dark, under pressure, and far away from the noise. If you're feeling isolated right now, it's because you're in a season where you're being forged, not forgotten. And in that space, where no one claps for you, no one validates you, no one sees your hustle, that's where you learn the most important lesson of all: how to rely on your own power, how to listen to the voice inside you, how to pick yourself up even when the world acts like you don't exist. That's where real confidence is born, not from compliments, but from clarity, from knowing exactly who you are even when no one else gets it. Let me go deeper. Think back to the moments in your life when you were surrounded by people. Were you really seen? Were you truly supported? Or were you just entertaining? A chosen woman often finds herself entertaining roles, relationships, environments that were never meant to nourish her soul. And so, when the season shifts and those things fall away, it feels like a loss, but it's not a loss. It's a release. You can't carry everyone into your next level. Some people were only meant to know the version of you that fit their comfort zone. But that version no longer exists. You're evolving, and evolution demands exits. Sometimes people don't leave because they're not equipped to handle the weight of the woman you're becoming. This isolation, it's your cocoon. And in a cocoon, everything changes. It's messy, it's tight, it's dark, but it's necessary. Because before the butterfly can fly, it has to be alone. It has to struggle. It has to sit in transformation. Let's be honest. Everyone wants to shine, but no one wants to be shaped. Everyone wants the crown, but they don't want the crushing. But you're different. You've been handpicked to walk a path that others won't understand. You've been designed to carry a calling that demands discipline, and with that calling comes solitude. Why? Because when you're chosen, your lessons have to be deeper. Your skin has to be thicker, and your mind has to be sharper. People won't get it. They'll say you're acting different, that you've changed, that you're distant. But you're not distant. You're disciplined. You're focused. You're finally tuned in to what matters. And in a world that thrives on chaos and constant validation, choosing silence and solitude is a radical act of power. You're not being punished, Queen. You're being positioned. Positioned to think clearly, to build without noise, to hear your intuition without interference, to walk through fire without flinching. You're not being pushed away, you're being pulled up into a new mindset, up into a new standard, up into a version of yourself that refuses to settle for crumbs when you were born to feast. So the next time you find yourself sitting alone, wondering why everything feels like it's falling apart, pause, breathe, and remember, isolation isn't the enemy. It's the invitation. An invitation to rise, to rebuild, to refine. You were never meant to be average. And average is overcrowded. That's why the path you're walking feels empty, is because it's exclusive. Chosen women don't follow trends, they set standards. And they don't need an audience to validate their worth. Embrace your isolation. It's not the end of your story, it's the beginning of your becoming. There's something about you that's always been different. You've always had this depth, this knowing. You can walk into a room and feel the tension before a single word is spoken. You can hear what people aren't saying, see what they're trying to hide. Your heart is a radar. Your spirit is a sponge. And while the world calls it too sensitive, the truth is, it's a gift. You were never built to be numb. You were born to feel deeply, intimately, intensely, and sometimes painfully. But let me tell you something. When you're chosen, your emotions are not a weakness. They're wisdom. They're not flaws. They're filters. You feel deeper because you're called to live deeper. You don't just exist on the surface like everyone else. You touch the layers. You see through the masks. You hear the cries behind the smiles. That's not something you learned. That's something that's always been inside you. But here's the hard part. The deeper you feel, the more misunderstood you become. People think you're overreacting, that you're reading too much into things, that you're too much. But the truth is, most people are just not used to that level of awareness. They're not used to someone who can read energy like a book. They're not used to someone who can feel the temperature of a room without a thermometer. They're not used to you. And I know what you're thinking. If this is such a gift, why does it hurt so much? Because the world was not designed for people who feel everything. It was designed to reward those who can ignore, who can detach, who can walk past pain and pretend it doesn't exist. But not you. You feel the weight of a stranger's sadness. You carry burdens that weren't yours to begin with. You cry not just for yourself, but for people who never learned how. That's why you're exhausted. Not from doing too much, but listen to me carefully. Your sensitivity is not a curse. It's a signal. A sign that your heart is still intact in a world that's trying to make everyone numb. It's proof that your spirit hasn't been hardened by the chaos around you. That even after all you've been through, your heart still beats with compassion, with purpose, with fire. When you're chosen, you're given spiritual depth for a reason, because you're meant to move people, to heal people, to see them when they feel invisible, to feel them when they've gone numb. And sometimes you're the only light they see in their darkness. That's why you feel heavy at times. That's why you walk through storms that weren't even yours, because your heart is the place where healing starts. Not just for you, but for others. People with shallow emotions don't create waves. But you're an ocean. And oceans shift atmospheres. You were born to move things, to shake souls, to stir truth in people who've been hiding behind fear. And with that calling comes a price. You'll be misunderstood, labeled, pushed away. Not because you're wrong, but because you're real. And real makes people uncomfortable. You've cried at night, wondering why you can't just let things go like everyone else. why you remember every word, every tone, every glance. But that's the beauty of who you are. You carry memory like a mirror. You reflect truth even when it hurts. You don't just feel emotions, you speak them. You live them. You give voice to the things most people are too afraid to say. And yes, it gets lonely. People don't know how to hold space for a soul like yours. They don't know how to sit in silence with someone who doesn't need small talk. They don't know how to handle someone who feels pain they never mention out loud. So they call you dramatic, sensitive, overthinking. But don't shrink yourself just to fit into spaces too shallow for your depth. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to understand things no one else sees. To carry a frequency that breaks the chains off silent hearts. To love without condition. To feel without filters. And yes, sometimes that means breaking in places no one can see. But even your breaking is beautiful, because it means you still care. And the world needs more of that. More people who care. More women who lead with empathy, not ego. More voices that tremble with truth instead of hiding behind pride. Your heart, fragile as it may feel, is a weapon. A weapon against indifference, against cruelty, against silence. So protect it. Don't let this world harden you. Don't let heartbreak make you cold. Don't let being misunderstood push you into pretending. Your depth is rare. Your emotion is sacred. Your ability to feel is not just for survival, it's your superpower. You weren't made to be numb. You were made to feel it all and still stand. To walk through fire and still choose love. To cry and still choose courage. To see pain and still choose hope. You are chosen, and chosen women don't just endure emotions, they embody them. They transcend them. They use them to light the way for others. So feel, and feel fully. That's not your weakness. That's your assignment. Have you ever looked around and wondered why you just can't seem to fit in? Why every time you get close to people, something shifts? Why doors close right when you start to feel comfortable? It's not a coincidence. It's not rejection, it's redirection. When you're chosen, you will be set apart. Not once, but again and again. Because you were never meant to blend in with the crowd. You were never created to be average, to follow, or to disappear in the background. You were made to stand out, and that means you're going to be isolated. There's a reason why you felt lonely even when you're surrounded by people. There's a reason why friendships that once felt unbreakable suddenly faded away. Why lovers who swore they'd stay forever walked away like they never knew your name. It wasn't because something was wrong with you. It was because something is right with you. You are not being punished. You are being prepared. Preparation doesn't happen in the spotlight. It happens in the quiet. In the empty rooms, in the nights where no one checks in and you're left to cry on your own. That isolation? It's not abandonment. It's separation. It's a pulling away from what no longer serves your higher calling. You're being pulled back, not to suffer, but to sharpen. You're being placed in a position where you have no choice but to listen, not to the noise of the world, but to the voice within, the voice that says, you are born for more. There's a pattern to this. Every time you start getting too close to comfort, you're pulled away. Every time you think you found your circle, life shows you who's really in your corner. Every time you try to conform, to settle, to be normal, something inside you starts to ache. That's your spirit refusing to be compressed. That's your calling refusing to be silenced. You weren't made to fit a mold. You were made to break it. When you're chosen, your life won't follow the usual script. While others are busy building their image, you're being built in character. While they seek validation from crowds, you're being taught to stand alone. Because when the real battle begins, when your purpose calls you to rise, you won't need applause to move. You won't need approval to speak. You'll be ready because you've been set apart. Comfort is the enemy of calling. And so life keeps pulling you out of comfort zones, keeps disconnecting you from what feels easy, keeps placing you in situations that force you to rely not on people, but on something deeper, your vision, your faith, your strength. And I know it's painful. I know it feels unfair, but chosen women are not raised in convenience. They're raised in resistance. And that resistance, that's where the fire is forged. That's where you learn to pray from a place of power, not panic. That's where you learn to walk without needing someone to hold your hand. That's where you learn to trust your gut because it's been your only compass for a long time now. It's lonely at first, but over time, you realize something. Being set apart doesn't mean you're disconnected. It means you're distinguished. You weren't pulled away because you're broken. You were pulled away because your spirit was too bright to be dimmed by shallow company. You were pulled away because your destiny demanded a clearer path. The most dangerous thing is to stay surrounded by people who don't see your worth, who keep you small, who feed your doubts instead of your dreams. So when they walk away, let them. When you're not invited, be thankful. When you're excluded, celebrate. Because what looks like rejection is often just protection in disguise. You're being set apart so you can see clearly, so you can hear clearly, so you can grow without noise. You are being preserved for something greater, something that requires you to be whole, not half, something that can't be built in distraction or dysfunction. That's why the people, the places, the habits that once felt like home now feel foreign, because you're outgrowing what was never meant to hold your full potential. And when you finally step into that purpose, when the fog lifts and the pieces start to make sense, you'll look back on every lonely night, every painful separation, every quiet season, and you'll say, now I understand. You'll see how every single disconnection was divine, how every delay was on purpose, how every moment you were set apart was shaping you into someone unshakable. The world may never understand the weight you carry. That's okay. You weren't born to be understood. You were born to impact. And impact doesn't come from blending in. It comes from standing alone, being refined, being real, and rising, even when no one's watching. So don't fight the separation. Embrace it. Don't beg for doors to reopen. Close them with grace. Don't cry over who left. Bless them as they go. You are not missing out. You are moving up. And where you're going, not everyone can follow. You're not just being set apart. You're being set above. You ever notice how your life doesn't look like everyone else's? How the path you're walking isn't smooth, isn't easy, and sure as hell isn't normal? That's not a mistake. That's not misfortune. That's a sign. Because when you're chosen, your journey is never average. Your steps are ordered differently. Things don't come quick. They come through trials, through setbacks, through pain that teaches you who you really are. The road you're on is harder because what's waiting at the end is heavier. It has more weight. It carries more impact. You're not on a detour. You're in divine training. You're not being delayed. You're being developed. While others are getting handed opportunities they haven't earned, you're being sharpened behind closed doors. You're being taught how to hold your ground when it shakes. You're being taught how to stay silent when noise surrounds you. You're being taught how to lead yourself, because when the time comes to lead others, you won't fold. You won't flinch. You'll stand firm because you've already fought battles nobody saw and survived storms that should have drowned you. Every obstacle you faced, was it meant to break you? It was meant to build you. That betrayal built your boundaries. That disappointment built your discipline. That silence you sat in night after night, wondering why nothing's moving, That silence was building your strength because the mission on your life isn't small. It's heavy. And before you carry greatness, you have to carry struggle. Chosen women don't walk easy roads. They walk roads that make them question everything, roads that challenge their faith, their worth, their patience. But don't confuse the struggle with abandonment. Struggle is part of the assignment. You weren't chosen for comfort. You were chosen for purpose. And purpose always comes with pressure. Diamonds don't form in softness. They form under intense heat. And so do you. You know why your journey feels slow? Because you're not being thrown into the world, you're being launched. You're not being rushed, you're being refined. If life gave it to you too soon, you wouldn't be able to carry it. You'd drop it. You'd doubt yourself, you'd hand it back. So instead, you're being made ready in silence. And that silence, that space where you feel overlooked, forgotten, left out, that's where your foundation is being laid. Everyone wants the glory, but nobody wants the grind. You're in the grind. And the grind is what makes you different. It's what makes you rise when others quit. It's what makes you hold your head high when the world tries to shame you. You've cried in rooms no one saw. You smiled on days your heart was breaking. And still, you didn't fold. That's not weakness. That's warrior strength. You've questioned the path. You've asked why it's so hard, why people with less integrity get ahead, why your loyalty gets tested, why your love gets taken for granted. But every why has a deeper why not them. And the answer is simple. Because they couldn't walk what you're walking, they couldn't carry what you're carrying. It would crush them. But not you. You were built for this. Even when you feel like breaking, there's something in you that keeps going. That's not luck. That's purpose. Purpose doesn't ask for permission. It disrupts. It isolates. It demands change. And change isn't comfortable. It stretches you, scares you, even strips you of people, places, habits. You lose things along the way. But what you gain in the process, that's unshakable. You gain clarity. You gain power. You gain an identity that's not based on applause, but on alignment. You start to realize that everything you lost was never meant to stay, and everything that stayed, the strength, the vision, the hunger, that's your weapon. That's your proof that the path is working. It may not look like much now, but it's forming something rare, something the world doesn't see every day. A woman who knows who she is, even when nobody's watching. A woman who doesn't need validation to move forward. A woman who's faced fire and didn't get burned, she got brighter. You're not behind, you're being hidden. Hidden for the right time, the right door, the right moment. And when that moment comes, everything you've walked through will make sense. The pain, the pressure, the waiting, all of it was setting you up for something greater than you imagined. So if you're in the middle of a storm right now, don't run from it. Walk through it. Let it mold you. Let it teach you. Let it reveal to you just how powerful you really are. Because this journey, it's not for the weak. It's for the chosen. And you, yes, you are chosen. You didn't come this far just to survive. You came to conquer. You came to rise above every lie that told you you weren't enough, every delay, every detour, every door that slammed in your face. All of it was building a foundation that's unshakable. So keep walking, even when it's dark, even when it's heavy, even when no one claps for you, because you're not walking toward popularity. You're walking toward purpose, and purpose doesn't need an audience. It needs your obedience, your grit, your growth. Your journey is not broken, it's blessed, not because it's easy, but because it's yours. And when the time comes, the world will see what you've known all along, that you weren't delayed, You were being destined. Let me know when you're ready for keynote 5. You ever look around and wonder why nobody gets you? Why you feel like an outsider? Even in rooms full of people? That's not your imagination. That's not you being dramatic. That's the reality of being different, of being called, of being chosen, because when you're set apart, you're not going to blend in. You're not going to be accepted everywhere you go. And you're not supposed to be. Being chosen often means being misunderstood. People see your strength and think you don't struggle. They see your silence and mistake it for weakness. They see your kindness and think they can take advantage of you. But what they don't see is what you've had to overcome just to stand where you are. They don't see the nights you've cried, the battles you fought in silence, the self-doubt you've had to wrestle with, and because they don't see it, they judge what they think they understand. But understand this, you are not misunderstood because you're flawed. You're misunderstood because you're favored. Because you move different. You think different. You carry something different. There's a light in you that makes insecure people uncomfortable. There's a wisdom in you that intimidates the shallow. There's a purpose in you that threatens people who are still searching for theirs. And instead of trying to understand you, they reject you. They mislabel you. They distance themselves from you. But that's not rejection. That's revelation. See, when you're chosen, you're not called to fit in. You're called to stand out. You're not supposed to be understood by everybody because your journey is not like everybody else's. And that isolation you feel, that distance from people who used to be close, that's not punishment. That's protection. You're being separated so you can grow. You're being pulled away from the noise so you can hear clearly. You're not being overlooked, you're being preserved. Chosen women walk alone sometimes, not because they want to, but because the crowd can't carry their calling. You can't take everyone with you. Some people aren't built to go where you're headed. And it hurts, doesn't it? Watching people you loved fall away. Feeling like you don't belong in the spaces you used to thrive in. But that discomfort, that's a sign that you're evolving, that you're outgrowing what once fit you, that you're stepping into a higher version of yourself. And not everyone can follow. You've been wondering, why do people turn cold on me, or why do I always feel left out? It's because your spirit exposes what theirs is lacking. It's because your growth reminds them of what they're not doing. Your peace disturbs their chaos. Your strength shines a light on their weakness. And when that happens, they either rise with you or retreat from you. Let them. Because your journey isn't about dragging people with you. It's about becoming who you were born to be, fully, boldly, unapologetically. And I know the loneliness gets heavy. The silence gets loud. You start to question if something's wrong with you, but nothing's wrong with you. You're just on a path that few can understand. And the reason it feels so hard is because you're breaking generational patterns. You're healing wounds that weren't yours to carry. You're building a life that's never been modeled for you. That takes courage. That takes vision. That takes being okay with being misunderstood. You don't need to explain yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You don't need to water down your truth to make others feel comfortable. You don't need to shrink to fit into spaces that were never meant to hold your greatness. When you're chosen, you learn how to walk alone, not because you're arrogant, but because you've learned your voice, to honor your intuition, to protect your peace. Being misunderstood is the only way to discover who really sees you. Because when you're shining bright, people will either try to dim your light or help you rise higher. And when you're constantly being misunderstood, it reveals who's really for you and who's just around you. You don't need everyone, you just need alignment. The ones who are meant for your life will understand you without you having to explain. They'll feel your heart without you having to speak. But until then, walk your path anyway. Because being chosen means being willing to walk alone, knowing you're never truly alone. It means embracing the isolation not as punishment, but as preparation. It means knowing that you don't need approval to keep moving forward. It means standing tall in rooms where you're overlooked because you know who you are, even if they don't. Let them misunderstand you. Let them whisper. Let them walk away, because when the time is right, everything that was misunderstood about you will become the reason they respect you. The very things they didn't get, your vision, your voice, your value, will be the same things they admire when the spotlight finds you. But by then, you won't need their validation, because you'll have something deeper, clarity, and clarity will carry you through what confusion never could. So hold your head high, keep your heart pure, keep doing the inner work, because you weren't made to be understood by the world, you were made to change it. And the ones who are misunderstood the most, they're often the ones who transform the world the deepest. Let me know when you're ready for Keynote 6. You ever feel like you carry a storm inside you and a calm the world can't understand? Like you're fierce and tender at the same time? That's not a contradiction. That's your power. You are both fire and water, strong enough to walk through the flames, soft enough to heal what's broken. And that duality, that balance, is what makes you different. It's what makes you chosen. There's a fire in your spirit that refuses to die, even when life has hit you hard, even when they tried to break you, when they left, when they lied, when they mocked your dreams. You kept going. Even when you were exhausted, you didn't give up. That kind of fire doesn't come from the surface. That's soul deep. That's a fire that's been built through trials, through pressure, through pain. It's forged in the dark, away from the applause, far from the spotlight. That's why people can't figure you out, because they don't know what you've survived to still be standing. A chosen woman doesn't wait for validation to step into her power. She doesn't look around to see who claps before she moves. She moves because